1 week before his death. Moe Howard, the eldest brother of the legendary comedy group The Three Stooges, broke his silence. He uttered a truth about his brother, Curly Howard, and it wasn't happy memories, not laughter, but a confession filled with tragedy. Flash back in time, back to the impoverished Brooklyn of the early 20th century, where Jewish children carried in their hearts the dream of escaping poverty through art. Among them was Moe, the ambitious eldest brother, and Jerome, the innocent youngest brother, whom the whole world would later know by the name Curly. Curly was the soul of laughter, a guy who didn't need a script, just a gesture, a strange sound, could make the entire set burst into applause. But few people knew that. Behind each resounding laugh, there were long nights of exhaustion, a body gradually decaying from pressure and illness. In his final week, lying on his sickbed, Moe confessed. He said Curly wasn't just a comedian. Curly was a human being carrying within him loneliness, pain, and destruction to the very end. Moe, born in 1897, early on showed a strong, determined personality. He often stood up to protect his siblings from bullies. In the family's eyes, Moe was the leader, a boy with stern eyes, but hidden behind them was a desire to change their fate. Meanwhile, Jerome, born in 1903, was the opposite image. The clumsy, innocent youngest, but carrying within him a special gift, the ability to make anyone burst out laughing. Jerome didn't need to act. Every fall, every quirky cry was natural, as if he was born for the stage. The family was poor, but there was one person always standing behind to support them, Mrs. Jenny, their mother. In the midst of deprivation, she still believed that art could be the path to lift her children out of a laborious life. Moe brought ambition. Jerome brought joy. And that combination became the foundation for a legendary journey. The childhood years in Brooklyn not only forged their talents, they also etched deep the bond between brothers. Moe always saw in Jerome a light, an innocence that the whole family needed to hold on to hope. And Jerome always looked to Moe as the guide, the protector, even the role model to follow. Few could have imagined that this very bond would lead them to glory, but also simultaneously to irreparable tragedies. The turning point came in the 1930s, when Moe had already started making a name for himself in vaudeville acts, performing with comedian Ted Healy. With his sharply cut short hair and stern face, Moe quickly became the boss on stage, the one who shouted, slapped, poked eyes at his co-stars, creating a unique signature. But then an incident happened. Another brother, Shemp, decided to leave the group. That emptiness left Moe in a difficult position. Who could fill this gap? Everyone looked to Jerome, the shy guy, with little experience and seemingly not suited for the stage. But Jerome was determined. He shaved off his thick hair and mustache, transforming into a completely new appearance, a bald, childlike head, a naive face. And from that moment, Curly was born. The first time stepping into the spotlight, Curly made the entire audience explode. Laughter echoed, the quirky movements, the silly sounds, all so natural that no one believed it was a performance. Curly didn't need to learn, didn't need to rehearse. He was Curly. In just a few months, the trio of Moe, Larry, and Curly had stepped out from Ted Healy's shadow. By 1934, they signed a contract with Columbia Pictures. This was the milestone that turned the Three Stooges into legends. But glory was not easy. Columbia imposed a grueling shooting schedule, 8 to 10 short films a year, each completed in less than a week, a ruthless grind. But for the audience, the results were magical. Films like Men in Black or Uncivil Warriors spread their laughter across America, becoming a spiritual tonic during the Great Depression. At the center of that whirlwind, it was none other than Curly. He became the heart of the group. In the early 1940s, the Three Stooges entered their golden era. Their short films blanketed theaters across America. Children imitated Curly's woo-woo-woo sounds, while adults laughed uproariously at the falls. The endless spins. Curly became an icon, the indispensable heart in every frame. But behind that laughter, cracks began to appear. Curly was still young, not yet 40, but his body changed rapidly. Weight soared, movements slowed, and sometimes he forgot lines that once flowed like breath. The audience didn't notice, but Moe, the brother, always by his side, saw the abnormality clearly. It wasn't just fatigue. It was the sign of a silent disease. On set, there were times when Curly suddenly stood still, eyes vacant, then confused about where he was. In those moments, Moe would quietly step in, cleverly adjusting the scene to hide his brother's flaws, keeping the camera from stopping. Larry Fine, the co-star, later admitted, "We did everything to protect Curly. Moe told us, help make him look normal on screen, but deep down, everyone knew the situation was getting worse day by day." Moe had begged Columbia many times to let Curly rest. In a letter sent directly to the studio president, he wrote, "Jerome can't continue at this pace. I'm afraid I'll lose him." But the response was only silence. Columbia needed laughter, needed revenue. And Curly, the brother Moe loved, was still dragged into the merciless grind. To the audience, Curly was still the improvisational genius. But to Moe, every laugh echoing in the theater was like a knife twisting deep into his heart. He knew his brother was gradually wasting away. In 1946, the Three Stooges were filming the short Half-Wits Holiday. The final scene was planned as a typical comedy bit, Curly sitting in a chair, holding a cream pie, chaos around. The audience would laugh as always. But then, instead of laughter, the set fell into deadly silence. Right in the middle of the scene, Curly collapsed. A severe stroke. He was only 42. Moe, the brother standing right nearby, immediately rushed over. He hugged Curly tightly, shouting for a doctor. Those frantic cries were no longer the familiar stage act. They were the desperate screams of a brother watching his sibling crumble before his eyes. Curly survived, but he was no longer the Curly of old. He was partially paralyzed, speech slurred, movements clumsy. For an artist who lived by body language, this was a death sentence for his career. Columbia quickly brought back Shemp, Moe's other brother, to replace him. Shemp had his own style, witty, awkward, but could never fill the void Curly left. The audience felt the absence clearly, and so did Moe. While the group had to continue, Curly began a new chapter in life, without the stage, without applause. It was long years in hospitals, sanitariums, and silent rooms with only shadows for company. Moe still visited regularly, bringing old films to screen by the bedside, hoping to find a spark in his brother's eyes. And sometimes, just for a moment, Curly would laugh seeing himself on screen. But then the smile faded, giving way to vast silence. For Moe, that was the greatest pain. His brother was still there, but the humorous soul that once made the world roar had gone forever. After the 1946 stroke, Curly Howard entered a dark phase of life. From being the shining star of laughter, he became a disabled man, living in hospitals and sanitariums, sometimes lucid, sometimes not. At first, Curly refused to believe his career was over. He asked Moe many times, "When can I go back to the set?" In Curly's heart, the glory still lingered, but his body had betrayed him. Moe couldn't bear to tell the truth, just silently hugged his brother. In the years that followed, Curly's condition worsened. He was repeatedly tormented by other strokes, leaving wounds that never healed. Memory declined, sometimes cheerful like a child, sometimes angry for no reason, paranoid and desperate. In 1947, Curly married for the 4th time to Valerie Newman. This woman stayed by his side until the end. But even love couldn't stop the destruction. Friends and family who visited said Curly was only a faint shadow of himself. Larry Fine, the close teammate, bitterly admitted, sometimes Curly still laughed remembering the old days, but most of the time, he just sat quietly, eyes empty. In 1949, the audience got one last glimpse of Curly when he appeared in the short Hold That Lion. It was the only time all three Howard brothers appeared on screen together, but everyone could see. Curly was no longer the Curly of before. He was thin, weak, silent, just a fleeting shadow. On January 18, 1952, at Baldy View Sanitarium in California, Curly Howard passed away at age 48. The world was stunned. Fans couldn't believe the clown who made millions laugh hysterically ended his life in such quiet and painful obscurity. For Moe, that death wasn't a sudden shock. He had watched his brother fade day by day, had mourned for a long time. But when the final moment came, the loss still tore his heart apart. Because Curly wasn't just a colleague, not just a legend. Curly was the youngest brother whom Moe had loved and protected his entire life. After Curly's death in 1952, Moe still had to continue on stage. The Three Stooges couldn't stop, because the public still needed laughter. Shemp returned. Then later Joe Besser and Curly Joe DeRita. The new trio still performed, still threw out familiar bits. But in Moe's eyes, the group was no longer itself. He once admitted, "Every time I step onto the set, I unconsciously look for Curly, but he's not there anymore." In the 1950s, television began rerunning the old shorts. A new generation of viewers, kids who had never seen Curly on the big screen, now loved the goofy woo-woo-woo and endless falls. For Moe, this was comfort but also pain. He was proud that Curly was immortal in viewers' memories, but every audience laugh reminded him of the cruel truth. His brother had traded health, youth, and ultimately life to create that laughter. Moe founded Normandy Productions to manage film rights. He refused many advertising offers, determined not to turn Curly into a commercial product. In a letter, Moe wrote, "Curly isn't for sale. He was an artist, not a product." But deep down, Moe never escaped the guilt. He believed that if he hadn't forced Curly to keep working per Columbia's demands, perhaps his brother wouldn't have collapsed so quickly. He once confided, "We made the whole world laugh, while my brother was dying right before my eyes." This was the most painful paradox of Moe's life. The man who brought laughter to millions lived in a private tragedy that nothing could erase. In the early 1970s, after nearly half a century tied to stage and screen, Moe Howard entered his final years. Lung cancer, the result of long-term smoking, knocked at his door. Health weakened day by day, but what haunted him wasn't death, but memories of Curly. In May 1975, Moe was admitted to Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles. The small hospital room, but every day echoed with old films from the projector the family brought. People recounted that when Curly's image appeared on screen, Moe's eyes lit up, but then blurred with tears. He whispered his brother's real name, Jerome. His daughter, Joan, remembered that moment forever. She said, "My father was no longer a comedian. He was just a brother, missing his sibling to the point of heartache." And then, just 1 week before closing his eyes, Moe broke decades of silence. He confessed that Curly wasn't always the cheerful clown the audience believed. Behind that laughter were long nights of loneliness, illness, and despair. He revealed, "We laughed on screen, but in reality, my brother suffered. I let him endure it because I feared losing the group. I've never forgiven myself." That confession wasn't just unburdening. It was like a spiritual will, a desire for the audience to remember Curly not just as a clown, but as a flesh-and-blood human, one who paid too high a price for art. On May 4, 1975, Moe Howard passed away at age 77. He departed carrying regret, but leaving an immortal legacy. After Moe's death, the public was stunned not only by losing the eldest of the Three Stooges, but also by his final confessions. Those words were like a door opening to a hidden corner never revealed. Curly Howard, the icon of laughter, had actually lived and died in pain. From then on, Curly's image in the audience's hearts was no longer simply the silly clown, juggling, spinning, shouting quirky sounds that made everyone laugh. People began to see him as a tragic artist, a soul who sacrificed himself to bring joy to the world. Thanks to that confession, Curly became more relatable and human than ever. He wasn't just a character on screen, but a vulnerable youngest brother, swept into Hollywood's harsh machine, trading health, youth, even life. Those who watched Curly in theaters in the 30s and 40s now sighed. They understood that every laugh they got came with a tear that Curly and Moe had to swallow. And for later young generations, Curly became a dual icon, both innocent laughter and a reminder of fame's brutal cost. Perhaps the greatest gift Curly left wasn't just laughter, but a life lesson, that behind every brilliant performance might be unseen suffering. And sometimes, the greatest art is created through silent sacrifice. Looking back at the whole story, we see the journey of Moe and Curly Howard isn't just the history of a comedy group. It's a story of brotherhood, dedication, and the harsh price of art. Moe, the strong eldest brother, carrying responsibility his whole life, finally departed with regret. Curly, the innocent youngest, improvisational genius but worn down to exhaustion by the very laughter he created. 3 decades later, when the world heard Moe's final confessions again, Curly's image changed. He was no longer just the cheerful clown, but a symbol of sacrifice, proof that behind the bright lights, sometimes there's unseen darkness. The story of Moe and Curly Howard has left us not only laughter, but deep reflections on brotherhood, art, and the price of glory. If you also once loved Curly, once laughed with the Three Stooges' timeless films, please share your memories in the comments below. In your opinion, what is the greatest gift Curly left for the world? Don't forget to like this video to keep their memory alive forever. And subscribe to the channel to join me in continuing the journey to discover secret stories behind Hollywood's scenes. Curly's laughter still echoes, but it's us who will keep that legacy from ever fading.